Welcome to this podcast on digital responsibility. There's a vibrant community across the world at the moment driving forward corporate digital responsibility, which includes a range of aspects from digital ethics, digital for the environment, sustainability, digital well-being, inclusion, accessibility, and more. My name is Rob Price, one of the founders of Corporate Digital Responsibility back in 2017. If you'd like to know more, have a look at the website corporatedigitalresponsibility.net. Welcome to the 11th episode of the Corporate Digital Responsibility podcast, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Saskia and Christopher. Saskia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Rob. Thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be here. I'm Saskia Dörr. I'm a consultant on corporate digital responsibility with my own company, Wiseway, that I founded some years ago. Started with corporate responsibility topics when I had my MBA on sustainability management, something like 8 years ago. And something like 4 or 5 years ago, I started to combine corporate responsibility with the question of digitalization and on the question of what happens with sustainability when the whole economy works on digital transformation right now. And I started with my own research, with my background in the biggest ICT companies in Germany for 20 years in different management positions. And I started my own research on this question. And I'm happy that I worked on a book that was published last year, 12 months ago, which is called Practical Guide on Corporate Digital Responsibility, but it is published in German. And it should help practitioners to somehow get a grip on this rather young management topic, to somehow start with it in your own company, to have an idea what are the new action fields, what are the methods that could be used. And right now I'm working on the translation in English, and I hope that it will be published this year.
Fantastic. And I'm very conscious that there's quite, for something that is such a new topic, and there aren't many kind of organisations, there aren't many books, I imagine, at all that have been published on CDR. But there's been a lot of adoption. So I know from previous conversations, many organisations have been in touch and have the book. How about sharing some of the insights that's given and some of the feedback that you've got in regard to that, how that's helped those businesses?
Yeah, I got really, fantastic feedback from experts in working on corporate responsibility, or more on the digital ethics part. What they said is that somehow it helped them with structuring the whole topic, giving them some inspiration what they could do. And I had also really great feedback from scientists, from people working scientifically in academia, who said that that it was something like a milestone, because there was nothing like a book on this topic. And I wrote it with funny feelings, because I knew that it's really a high risk to write such a book with nothing where you could rely on in a way. And I wrote it because I wanted to, in Germany, I would something say like a letter for others, like helping others to do it better, in the future.
And of course, that's the beauty of it being a practical guide. It has been about helping organisations provide guides or templates to help them work through those challenges, which are new challenges for everybody.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm working with the book at the university with students as well, and they apply it on their companies, and they are doing it really successfully. I'm really happy about that. Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head, Saskia, when you mentioned corporate digital responsibility as a young topic. And it absolutely is young comparatively to all the other disciplines that we pursue in business and that we work with. And I suppose that makes sense then why businesses out there are so keen to get some structure, some clear thinking, some methodologies that say this is a frame for how you can operate in an ethical way going forward, or in the right way, more fundamentally. I was wondering who within the corporate world, within the businesses, was kind of the customer of the book? Who was the person that was interested in the field most? Was it the CEO, the CFO? Was there a type of individual that was most keen, or was it more diverse?
Yeah, actually, I mean, it was recognized really well in all in the CDR community that we are having right now in Europe. In the book, for the book, I did some practical examples as well, because I said, okay, it should be for practitioners, and we can find examples. What we can't find is companies that where we can say this is a CDR company or they are doing good in CDR, but we can find projects, find first moves on the topic. And and when I looked at it, I found huge companies like DAX companies, and I found startups. So this is, the world that I'm seeing. You have all these huge with shares, and you have all these, the startups. And in between, which is a really interesting group of the businesses with the SMEs, which I'm working with, they are really far away from, or they were far away from the topic something like 2 years ago. And what I'm seeing with who really adopts the book, are the experts. This is not a book particular for CEOs.
I see.
It is good for for leaders of small businesses, but it's not. It's not written for really huge companies with their own CR department and with lots of budgets and so on. It's a book for those who really do it by themselves.
It's probably worth adding for many people who listen to this that the CDR community across Germany and Austria and Switzerland is a big community. That's many organizations, as you say, all kind of different shapes and sizes, who have passionate people across that organization wanting to make a difference.
Yeah.
Of that community, what's the segmentation like? Do you get a feel for particular market sectors being more represented than others? Are there more in financial services versus automotive versus manufacturing versus government or health, or what's the mix like?
My perspective is, of course, the biggest footprint is with the IT and ICT companies. They really adopted it, really, really fast. And it's, as I worked in this industry as well, it's not a really huge step for them. Yeah, it's the topics we are talking about are the natural topics of an ICT company and some IT company. It depends on the focus of the business, but it's really natural to them. And this is what we see. All the huge software companies, all the huge ICT companies, they not only use the topic digital ethics, but they also use the phrase corporate digital responsibility. So, and this is what I see, but what I actually miss in Germany, I don't know how how you see it. I don't see the movement to the smaller business. I don't see the smaller IT businesses adopting the topic, and this is what I really what I'm really wondering about. So, is it really? It seems that not only the industry is a driver, but it really depends on the awareness of the stakeholders. And if you are a huge company, if you're a public company, you have to show your responsibility immediately. If you are a bit smaller, it's not necessary anymore because you are not part of the public awareness of the topic. This is, I mean, this is just a thesis. I don't know if
I think you're right, and we can probably explore it in the sense that I mean, we were talking before the call about leadership that certain kind of large organizations are showing in this space. I mentioned Microsoft, but Christopher's on, so we could kind of mention Atos in that sense around the strong focus around decarbonisation. So absolutely there. There are other organisations that are very much driven by purpose. They were set up that way. So the things that they are trying to achieve are naturally disruptive, are naturally trying to kind of deliver significant societal change. And then I guess there's everybody else, and it's a question of how everybody else then gets to play, so to speak, and to play in the context of the search for talent in terms of recruitment, or the differentiation or decision making by the consumer or the citizen engaging with those organisations.
Yeah, I was going to elaborate really. I think along the same lines you were taking that, Rob. I think one of the most clear examples of smaller companies pursuing corporate digital responsibility sits in the fintech sector, where a lot of those companies have almost been targeted at achieving digital inclusion or accessibility of products. They've almost set it up as their own core purpose to achieve a greater good for society, and it's part of their competitive differentiator that then a large company, a big bank comes along and says, we've realized now that we need to pursue this new, more positive trajectory, therefore we'd like to consume you, small business, or we'd like to take your services. So it's almost created a market for a CDR goods and services in that respect. But I think you're then also right, Saskia. There are those smaller organizations for whom they have a core purpose, a core goal to create a product or take something to market, and for whom digital responsibility becomes a side requirement of which they don't have enough time, resources, effort to be able to focus their time. And therefore it's natural that it gets kind of put to one side as a non-requirement. So it's interesting how I think a lot of it becomes purpose orientated, and when we think about the size of the organization and its industry.
I mean, we had a blog article that we published in terms of the conversation I had with Jakob around the leader, and which was a great example of, in my view, it was a great example of an organization that was undergoing a digital transformation firmly with sustainability and society at the heart of it, and with kind of ethics and purpose kind of very much part of it as well. So it was the combination of all, and I think that's for me the one. Where are the other examples that are out there like he described?
Yeah. Exactly. I just one thing. I think what you just said, Christopher, with the purpose in the core. I think this is one really. I mean, this is really important fact to the question. I mean, purpose driven is combined with brand, with a question of a trusted brand, and this is what I perceive, and this is also what I feel when I see the Veleda case. They have a really strong brand, and they would like to transform this brand in the digital sphere, and they did it with the CDR as a vehicle to do it. And I think when we see right now companies that are deep into the CDR digital ethics thing, it's all about the brand or the purpose, but it has to do with a strong brand. Yeah, and this is one of the main drivers, I think. I'm also looking for cases and examples, and it's interesting what you said about the fintech, because I just had one example like that during the last weeks. I was trained as a B leader, and this was also interesting. I had somehow tried to combine it with the digital things and try to find it out how it combines. But there was a fintech that really is purpose driven, yeah, and they had with their foundation, they knew they want to become a B Corp, yeah, and as a differentiator for their investors. They don't know what the value is for them, but they know they want to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you almost end up reevaluating who your customer is or who your shareholder is. It goes from being, I will produce my product, my service to that young trendy consumer that I know wants to get my product, versus actually being particularly relevant to financial services. My customer is the customer that needs my product the most, but might be dissuaded by the digital world and everything that comes with it. And as soon as you reevaluate fundamentally who is my customer, then it naturally flows that you do things in a more inclusive way. You do things, if my shareholder isn't just the person that's investing, but the planet, to use a very broad and maybe cheesy analogy, and then all of a sudden I care much more about my footprint and the externalities of my products. So I think it's that change in mindset.
Just two more examples that I just got to know are from the healthcare industry. I mean, of course, we have to talk about healthcare industry because I mean it's of course in the heart of the pandemic, and it really involves very much into the digital sphere, and of course it has to do with sensitive data. There were two examples that they used this kind of data process modeler. Don't know if you read that, Rob or Christopher. It's a modeler where you can show the data flows so that the users can really understand what happens with their data. And these were two examples from the healthcare department, but healthcare industry, but I'm not sure if they're really leading the CDR movement. I have the impression that they are there might be leaders, yeah, that are really taking it seriously, but it's more like being forced more on the regulatory part.
I think the other thing is that many organizations are doing things that have an alignment with CDR, but do not necessarily call it CDR. So I was talking to an energy organization the other day, and they are absolutely doing things that we would recognize as familiar to CDR in terms of environmental responsibility, for example, or use of AI to cut down on carbon emissions as part of that. Clarity in terms of some of the things that they're doing with data and that AI in the context of the ethical position as well. And they're having to do that because of the point around brand and reputation. It's very clear to them that they have to evolve. It's just not called CDR in that context. One of the things that I'm increasingly interested in is the alignment of CDR to things like ESG and B Corp. The ESG, for example, there is evidence that says that there is financial benefit to those organizations that have got higher ESG scores. And I almost see CDR as part of the transformation to that. How do you improve that scoring? Well, actually, here are a number of examples that enable you to use digital transformation, digitalization as part of that journey to improve the things that then improve your financial position. So I do see it increasingly in that context. How about government? What have you seen across public sector in Germany, for example? Is there any interest around CDR there?
Yes, I mean, we have this initiative from our Ministry of Justice and Consumer Protection. They started something like four or 5 years ago to talk with huge companies about the concept of CDR. So this was, I think this was the main reason why this is a term in Germany, which is quite known, yeah, because they used it on the political sector. But actually, it was one ministry who did it and brought it into life, and then she went to the EU. And after this, not really very many things happened there. That's my impression. I don't know. That's, I think there is political interest in the topic, as they know that regulation will not be sufficient. Yeah, I think this is modern policymakers understand that they cannot rule everything, even not in a such a highly evolving topic like tech. Yeah, dynamically evolving. So I think they are really interested in the topic. They see the chance of the self-regulation, of soft law, and they really want to support it. This is the impression that I have. They want to support this idea so that the different industries really have their own regulation on it. And I don't see any management standards or something like that evolving. This is what you just said, Rob. So we are just at the beginning of it.
And I think, I mean, going back to the regulation and the move to the EU, I mean, obviously the EU is introducing the Digital Markets Act, Digital Services Act. There's kind of guidance coming out around the use of AI. So there is active regulation, but as you say, that raises the bar, if you like, the minimum level of accepted. But it's a question of what organisations are doing above and beyond. Any final thoughts, well, both Christopher and Saskia, in terms of maybe what would you like to see in the rest of 2021? What would be your prediction around a market sector that we might see the most activity in over the next few months, especially as, fingers crossed, we begin to come out of the pandemic, at least in terms of some of the worst of what we've seen?
Christopher starts.
Yes, not an easy question to answer, Rob. I was just reflecting as we were discussing that a lot of the time the urgency for CDR and the drive for it might align itself with those kind of fundamentals that we actually captured in one of our early surveys. Well, when we asked people to what extent they felt comfortable with the digital world, they explained things like their own money, their health, were kind of vital factors in whether they felt comfortable with the technology or not. I think it's the sectors that guard those capabilities, the financial services sector guarding our money, the health sector supporting our route out of the pandemic and our health more broadly. They'll continue to be on the forefront of doing so in a way that is supportive to us and to society, because it's a vital part of their operating model and their purpose in this world. So I envisage that continuing, and I hope that government will keep up in making sure we have the frameworks in place to make that work.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm sure that I mean, what we just to wrap up what we said, I think we will see more and more companies with a strong brand, also not only the large ones, but also in the SME size, to really, I mean, adopt while going through a digital transformation. So, but having this consumer B2C business, I think this is what we see first. I already got some interest by tax consultancies. So this is more B2B, but or B2B2C, I mean, however you see it. So every industry that with a really strong data footprint. So this is what I'm really looking for at the moment. Where are the really big data footprints of the future? Where does the business models change as much so that the value is made by data in the future? And this might be insurance, this might be finance, this might be consumer, this might be e-commerce, this might also be some healthcare startups and so on. But I think these are the ones where we look at consumers and where we look at society, and which we watch, and therefore they have to, I mean, somehow go and lead the movement. So I hope to see that.
Excellent point. And as you were talking, I was just thinking around the work that we've talked to about the UN with the Environment Programme, which is very data-centric, aggregation, or the Global Open Finance Initiative, GOFCO, that I've talked quite a bit about on a previous podcast. And so data-centric, completely agree. Kind of maybe that will be the drive. And Christopher, makes sense in terms of those areas that you touched on as well, especially around health and immediacy of personal benefit to kind of be driving that forward. So look, thank you both of you for appearing on the podcast. Much appreciated. Saskia, we do look forward to reading your book, and fantastic to see that it will be translated into English and get a wider audience, and hopefully kind of a number of others listening to this will be reading that over the next kind of few months as it kind of becomes available. So thank you both.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.